Are money problems keeping you up at night? In this video, I'm going to be covering 5 strategies you can start to use today to help you overcome your money problems. Frank Thomas here, Wealth Generation Strategies, and today we're going to be talking about, I think, is a really important topic, and that is how to overcome money problems. We all have them from time to time. And I've got 5 strategies today for you that I think if you put these all into action, you can eliminate 95% of your up and coming money problems. Oh, I really hate having money problems because that usually means I don't sleep. If I don't sleep, I'm grouchy. I'll just leave it at that. But let's get started. And the first one is learn how to cut unnecessary expenses. This is what I believe the number one thing you can do starting right now is to review your ongoing expenses and cut out anything that's not adding value to your life. Also discover what your reoccurring yearly subscription expenses are. It really upsets me when I've forgotten I've got a subscription that's costing me a couple $100 a year and it just comes out. Now I'll try to get the money back. I prefer to be in a position where I can resubscribe if I want to. 9 times out of 10, if you've forgotten that it's coming out, you're probably not using it. So find ways to cut out any of those expenses. This tip, in my opinion, can save anywhere from a few $100 every month to several thousands of dollars each and every month. And I'm not making jokes here. When I went through my budget and cut out all the expenses, I had to make some radical changes in my life. But when I cut out all those expenses, I reduced my budget by $1,400 a month. I was shocked. And since then, I've reduced our budget even more, probably by another $500 on a monthly basis. So review your expenses and be sure that every dollar you spend is bringing more than a dollar of value into your life. If it's not, rethink it. Number 2, build an emergency fund. It's been a long time since I've harped about an emergency fund, and I think it's about time again. Having an emergency fund is a magical thing. It's like all of a sudden when an emergency happens, it's like, no problem. I have had an emergency just recently where I was like, okay, my contract's running out, another job's not coming up. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I forgot that I've got like 3 or 4 months in the bank in an emergency fund. So I'm good. And when I came to realize that, I went, hey, maybe I need to take a holiday. Maybe I don't need another job right now. Maybe I just need a holiday right now. So having an emergency fund is magic. Now, you'd say, well, Frank, how do I do it? It's super, super easy. Even if you save $25 a week into an emergency fund, that will turn into $1,300 after 1 year. And that's not even considering compound interest. That's just putting that $25 into it for 52 weeks in the year. Currently, I save at least $300 a month, and that amounts to about $3,600 in my emergency fund every year. In my hard cash emergency fund, I'm sitting on about $10,000. In other places, I'm sitting on about another $25,000. So I'm good for several months. So build that emergency fund. And not only that, if an emergency really does happen, other than losing your job or being out of work or something like that, you got it covered. No lost sleep. Oh, I love it. So be sure to start building your emergency fund right away. It's like I said, it's like having a magic wand in your back pocket. It's wonderful. Number 3, increase your income. Now, you'd say, okay, well, that kind of makes sense, but how do I do it? First off, consider a short-term side job. I like to call it a gig. Sometimes it's amazing what an extra $500 a month can do. If you have a significant other, they can possibly seek out full-time or part-time employment to take some of the pressure off of you. For instance, my wife, she has a business at home, but she's not busy all the time. She makes a little bit of income. But I said to her, hey, why don't you consider picking up a part-time job working at a business here in town? If you bring in a couple $1,000, hey, that's wonderful. So do consider finding ways to increase your income. Now, I have a lot of other videos talking about other ways you can do this. There's a lot of other things you can do. And for instance, is you can seek out better qualifications, etc., etc., etc. I'll let you take a look at my channel, and I recommend that you do. I have, like I said, a lot of videos. I can show you how to make 20% more on a monthly basis every year. Imagine giving yourself a 20% raise every year. It's an amazing thing. Also, just as a little side note, if you're not using it, sell it. You might, like, for instance, I have a snowblower in the garage, a gas-powered snowblower that has electric start. I barely use the darn thing. And I went to the store, and they're worth about $1,500. You think I could turn that into $1,000 of hard cash? I think I can. So I'm going to be putting that onto the local rags here and selling it and put that $1,000 into my long-term savings. So sell anything that you don't think you're going to need or use in the future. Before we hit number 4, if you're enjoying this video, give it a like. It really helps the channel out. And if you're enjoying the video and want to know when I drop the next video, subscribe. You'll get a front seat to the next video that I bring, because I'm talking about making wealth in all different ways in your life. But let's get to number 4. Find a way to pay off some high interest debt. Now, it kind of makes sense, but it's amazing how many people carry high interest debt. Now, in my opinion, anything over 15% is high interest. You want to pay it off. All debt that you must pay takes away from your income. There was a time before I started making changes to make my income work for me and reduce my expenses that I would spend my whole paycheck paying debt. It was terrible. I didn't have any extra money for going out. I'd literally, if I could scrabble together $100 a month so my wife and I could enjoy a movie and a pizza, it was an amazing thing. And it was like that for a long time. Now, I've paid off 99% of our debt, and I carry debt that I think is only essential. And it's an amazing thing. We do still have credit cards, and I pay them off like that because I do not want to carry high interest debt. Also, too, here's a little hint for you. See what you can pay off that's high interest, and it may be a low amount. You might forget about it or think, well, that's not really that important, but get rid of it, make it go away. Hey, $25 is $25. You might be just servicing the low water mark, and you're just servicing interest on that debt. And so you're holding on to debt that you're not even really paying off. This can really reduce your expenses. Pay those little ones off quick, even if they're not as high as other ones. Just get rid of them, get them out of your billowhack. You stop worrying about them. It's the load that it takes off your mind is worth its weight in gold here. And it will reduce the pressure of your expenses a little bit or a lot. Number 5, start to track your indiscriminate spending. Indiscriminate spending is like spending done at a random time, and it's usually without any planning or careful judgment. And it could be $5 or it could be $500. You might be surprised how much money you spend on lattes or gadgets. I'm guilty of spending money on books. I like buying books. I buy books all the time. Another one was we have Tim Hortons up here in Canada, and I recharge our Timmy's card. And I one month sat down and realized that I had spent on Timmy's almost $200 in coffee. And I went, what am I doing here? This is crazy. Because I was tracking that expense. So what I did was I set it up that I can recharge the card with $50. That's it. Once it's gone, we're done doing Timmy's for the month. If I want to have another Timmy's coffee and that $50 is gone, it's got to come out of our fund money. And again, that's an expense that I've put into my line items. So track your indiscriminate spending. It will save you a boatload of money. If there's something that you enjoy and it costs you a few bucks, make a line item in your budget and keep to that budget. You'll be shocked at how important this is. You can go from spending more than you make to spending less than you make just by doing that. So those are the 5 strategies, but I do have a special bonus for you. And the bonus is avoid refinancing to reduce your monthly expenses. This is a real catch-22 in my opinion. It's not a bad plan, but only if you decide that you're going to change your spending habits. In other words, let's say, and I'm going to give you a real life example. Let's say you've got $15,000 in high interest debt on credit cards, and you go to the bank and the bank says, oh, we can issue a line of credit, much lower interest rate, and you can pay it off when you need to. And you go and you look at it and go, wow, I go from spending $1,000 to pay that off to spending $500 to pay it off. Yeah, that's great. But what can happen next is the insidious part, which you got to avoid like the plague. And that is, yeah, you sign up, you get that line of credit for $15,000, you pay off all the credit cards, and you're like, oh, yay, the credit cards are at zero. And then you look at your credit card 6 months later, and you spent another $15,000 on those credit cards. Oh my goodness, now you're not in debt for $15,000, you're in debt for $30,000. You want to change that habit. The fastest way is you have one credit card, got a very low maximum spending limit on it. So like $1,000, $500 is better, but banks won't issue a credit card for $500 anymore. But let's say $1,000. They want to give you credit cards that have spending limits of $50,000. That's ludicrous. But it is what it is. So you got to change those habits. This is, in my opinion, the number one reason why I stayed in revolving debt for over 20 years. And the $15,000 is actually a really important figure because we were in debt for $15K all those years on this stupid credit line. And I held on to that credit line. I tell you something, when I eventually paid it off, I closed it. And I had already gotten rid of the credit cards, and I started building that emergency fund, and I started earning more, and I started reducing my expenses, and it all made such a difference. And I was finding that I could actually sleep at night. What a wonderful feeling. We all want to make more money, and that's one of the points I had in this video. Figure out how you can make more money, and I mentioned that there's other videos. But have you ever wondered what are the fundamental elements of success? I just recently created a video that talks just about that. If you want to watch it, it should be showing up on the screen right now. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. If you enjoy this video, you're going to love this video because it's going to teach you the fundamental elements to help you become successful and possibly very rich. So be sure to check that video out. Frank Thomas here, and let's get rid of these money issues. Talk to you again. Bye-bye.